I'm Jamie S. Rich, and this is Back to the Gutters.
I like to use these Pentel pocket brushes.
Yeah, it's a beautiful brush. I use a Winsor Newton Series 7. I love comics, so I would use started building a story just right there over coffee.
Welcome to Back to the Gutters. It's a lovely Sunday in Portland, Oregon, and I'm here with Emi Lenox talking about comics, video games, and all the rest of the things that she loves. So, my first question to you is, what got you started in sequential storytelling, and what do you love about it? That's two questions, I guess, but let's start there.
I drew a lot as a kid,
Mhm.
and I read comic books, and then I wanted to do it.
Well, so is there something about, instead of doing singular illustrations, which a lot of people, they stop there, they cultivate that ability level, and then they don't go further. Was there something about stories that you had in your head that you wanted to tell?
Well, I guess it was just easier for me to draw out stories when I was a kid, because even back then I kind of kept a diary of things that happened, and I hated writing things out because I think my handwriting looked ugly and it was boring. So I would always draw it, and so I think there was kind of a natural segue into just drawing comic books.
Was there ever a time where you thought consciously, I have to tell this aspect of my life, I want people to know about it, or was it a kind of flow that just came about naturally?
None of that was natural. Well, I mean, it didn't. I never in my brain thought I would share any of my stuff up until 2009. And that was with EMITOWN, which is opening a whole nother can of worms.
No, I think it's an interesting can to open, because I was just thinking about EMITOWN before I got here and how you're able to do something, and I want to know how much of it is conscious, where you take important aspects of what happened to you throughout a day or a week or so whatever time period you choose, and then you break them down into these discrete, understandable chunks. Is that a thing that you think about actively?
Well, EMITOWN first started as a sketchbook to help me get back into drawing, because I stopped drawing for several years because of my boyfriend, because I suck like that. Like, female power went down the drain at that point. But, and it was just more, it was easier to draw every day about what happened that day. And so I would just pick little things, and even back then it was not a point to be keeping a diary, and it just became one.
Do you get nervous about sharing parts of your personal life online with strangers, or do you not think of it in that way?
Once I put it up, I forget that it's there.
So EMITOWN feels like it's just a natural part of your day-to-day.
EMITOWN is like, I do what I want, and it's okay. I mean, it might not be great, but it's okay, because it's, But with PLUTONA, there's like a schedule, you got colors, you got a letter. It's an actual, it feels more like I'm at a factory. Not in a bad way, but like there's, like, you gotta do this by this, and you gotta do this by this, and this.
So does that procedure, does it change the way that you make the artwork or tell the story from something that's more open-ended like EMITOWN?
Well, the whole thing's different than EMITOWN, obviously. There's like panels and stuff. But just the panels alone is crazy. But I guess more or less I have to get things done.
Is your most of your process is analog then? Do you do any digital work?
I want to, because as much as I like pen and ink, it's expensive. The brushes are expensive. In fact, the brushes I use are really old, and they make drawing PLUTONA harder, but I don't want to buy new ones. I might have to talk to Lieber, because sometimes he helps me out. And also paper is hard. Like buying paper and it's like storing paper. I want to get into digital, but it's expensive. I want to save up for a Cintiq Companion though.
Do you like having the artifact of the actual page in front of you? Is that
do.
important?
I do, and I like watercolor. I have to do that traditionally. I know there's a lot of programs that emulate watercolor really good, really well. But there's a certain grace and like enjoyment fulfillment you get from traditional art.
So you described a period of time early on in your career building where it was harder for you to do drawing, or you were getting the kinks out, but you have a board over there that has a bunch of projects listed on it for years in advance. Is that something that you built up to, and it's just a natural part?
I've had stories that I want to tell,
Mm-hmm.
and I pick which ones I think could become something.
Yeah.
So right now I have several, and then I really like planning
Yeah.
things and keeping lists. So that list doesn't completely mean everything. It can change at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
But my list pretty much have things planned out till 2018.
Whoa.
If I'm able to actually complete these things.
So how do you decide what's going to be the seed you'll plant to turn into the next thing for you?
Whichever stories are the most rounded.
Mm-hmm.
I have ideas, but they're not very filled out.
Yeah.
I'm curious about this project that I see a cover for pinned up on your board.
Oh, yeah.
Will you tell me about that and how it feeds into your family background and who you have become?
TADAIMA, which means I'm home in Japanese,
Mm-hmm.
is going to be a memoir comic about when I went back to Japan with my mother
Yeah.
several years ago. And I really wanted to do a story specifically on that because it meant a lot to me
Mm-hmm.
to revisit Japan because I hadn't been there in over 12 years.
Yeah.
And in that span of time, both of my grandparents died. And then the tsunami hit.
Yeah.
And my family lives in the Fukushima prefecture, but
Oh,
inland. So
okay.
they weren't as affected really by the tsunami.
Yeah.
But there are little things that were around that were interesting
Yeah.
from the radioactivity from the nuclear power plant
Okay.
meltdown.
Are there things you want to try on other projects that are a variation from what you do naturally that you're going to aim for?
Well, one of my future projects, which I don't want to name in case it never happens,
Yeah.
I don't want it to be caught on camera. I really want to try screen toning,
Mm-hmm.
like manga
Sure.
for it, and that's something I've never done. I think it's healthy to step outside of your box to
Yeah.
expand your knowledge because obviously I'm very comfortable with watercolors,
Yeah.
but there's still so much I don't know. Like with TADAIMA, it's going to be all watercolor, and I've already ran into all of these problems I didn't even think about.
Do you create rules then for yourself when you're doing a project like PLUTONA where these are reasonable boundaries, I can break them if I want, but just as a framework to start?
Like each project to me has its own building blocks.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't mix Legos in with Lincoln Logs. Like they're different sets. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Playmobil with Legos, they're different. But like I keep in mind different styles for each comic too. Like I don't like drawing the same. Like my style is a style,
Mhm.
but I still draw a little different.
So how do you think of there being a balance in the freedom of being an indie creator with trying to find ways to get paid to do just what you want to do? Is that a ongoing struggle, or is it something that is just part of?
It's not a struggle if you're not ever thinking that that's going to be where you get all your money.
Mm-hmm.
I feel very #blessed with the fact that I work at a bar once a week and I have the Patreon that helps me pay rent,
Yeah.
that I am able to turn down jobs. Like I've turned down jobs because I don't have to do it for money.
Yeah.
If my heart's not in it, I don't want. It literally eats my soul away, and it makes me want to drink alcohol a lot. Because I've done a job where it was for the money.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like what I was doing. I didn't like it at all.
Yeah.
And it depressed me so much. It put me in the dark, and I'm not a dark person, but it put me in a dark place.
Sure.
And I just wanted to constantly consume whiskey.
Huh.
I think I understand why they say like a lot of creatives drink alcohol.
Okay. Yeah. So what is the next let's say like 5 to 10 years of comics look like for you in an ideal scenario? What do you imagine as being the best case scenario?
Well, I mean, obviously publishing books. Money to me is just always like a side thing. Like, oh, I'm making money here. That's awesome.
Cool.
But I want to keep doing EMITOWN and keep making more volumes of that. Maybe not 400-page volumes anymore, because I've learned that is way too long.
Amazing.
Maybe like 200-page ones. But there's like a graphic novel I want to do about suicide.
Whoa.
Which also with cute characters like that.
Mortality and cuteness.
Yeah, you're right. It's a theme I don't realize I do. There's another story that I might want to do ongoing, but I don't know yet. But there are things. You saw it on my board.
Yeah.
There are things, but I just don't want to get detailed about what they are in the case that they don't happen. Or.
So, Emi, thank you for helping us understand your creative thinking. Can you show us your process a little bit?
Yeah.
Emi, can you show us how you would go from a thumbnail in a sketchbook to a final image in PLUTONA?
Yes, sir. Well, you get the script, right? This is a script you can't look at. And then you thumbnail the script. So let's just pick a page like this.
Is there something you like about working at this scale of sketchbook?
I can take it to the bar and work at the bar discreetly.
Okay.
Fits in my purse. So sometimes I doodle outside of it just to see what I want to draw.
And those are for variations on a shot?
Yeah, or like over here, and then I put numbers of what panel that will be in. It's sloppy. So then, for 17. Then I draw with a red pencil.
Okay.
Although I've moved to blue, I don't know why, on the second issue. I like change. And then I ink it. It's just very self-explanatory.
Well, I mean, I think to other artists it might be, but with your process, how do you decide where you're going to lead the eye? Is that where your spotting of blacks comes into play? Do you lay out the lines first?
I don't know. I don't think about that. There's less spot blacks I do in here. I did more in the second issue, which I obviously can't show because it's not out. Although it might be out when this airs. I really don't know.
Do you plan for it in your sketchbook?
Well, yeah. I mean, I put the shades there.
Okay.
But I learned with the second issue, I put more spot blacks, but I think it takes away from what Jordie as a colorist could be doing.
Yeah. And
I kind of regret it now, but now I got to keep going. But you learn through trial and error, right?
Well, I work with Jordie too. I have that same feeling.
Like visually, when it's black and white, like it looks good with this all black. Then I realized when she colored over it, like she didn't color over it, but like she could have done something pretty cool with it, and I basically put a block on her.
With your other stuff, you tend to color that all yourself. Is it hard, or is it a different mentality to work with somebody like Jordie?
It's jarring for me to see my stuff colored, because my stuff, unless it's watercolored, it's not really colored.
Yeah.
And I only do tones with EMITOWN, which I don't consider coloring.
Do you talk out color with Jordie when you get to that part of the process, or do you trust?
The only things I tell her is just I already have an idea of like the kids' clothes, because this was the first image we ever showed of PLUTONA before Jordie colored anything. So I was like, I wanted to make sure her hat was still red and she has blonde hair and like, that stuff.
Are you coding those characters so that at whatever scale they can be apparent who they are? Is that something you think about?
Well, obviously, like any creator, you want to be able to tell them apart, right? And Jeff did a really good job showing that they come from very different families and backgrounds. And I knew I wanted 2 Asians just to represent Asia. Not that there's not enough out there, but it's a piece of me I get to put in the story,
Yeah.
And I know we wanted to have different, like, body figures, short and tall, or, more healthier and bratty.
So you right before we started filming this, you told me a little bit about this process with salt. Can you explain that to people who have never seen it before?
Well, with watercolor, it didn't really work on that paper.
Oh, that's awesome.
This is another thing I did.
Is that a test piece for Plutona?
It ended up being a print I did for Emerald City,
Okay.
but the paper didn't take the salt the same way. It's different paper than this one. But yeah, you just put this. See, this doesn't have really salt. That's just putting clean water.
Oh, cool.
If you put clean drops of clean water on a wet surface, it pushes away the colors, which makes a cool, neat effect.
So do you like to seek out new techniques for the watercolor part of your process? Is that something you...
Well, watercolor is so much fun because you get to push the paint around, and it's very forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
When people talk about, whenever people say it's unforgiving, like, what the hell are you talking about? You can practically erase with watercolor just by pulling up the paint, you know? Yeah, I just love it because you can do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
It's hard to mess up. It's hard to mess up watercolor.
Emi, can you take us through a drawing start to finish, or what you might do for a sketchbook, or to do a single drawing from Plutona?
Well, not from Plutona, I will not, because I am nervous.
Okay.
And when I'm nervous, I draw worse. Hence why I work alone in a corner of my own apartment and not around other people. Like a lone wolf, like Jon Snow.
I like that, like Jon Snow.
So I'm going to draw a cat, like an army cat,
Okay.
so I draw at conventions because it's really fast and easy.
Nice.
And hopefully my hands won't shake
Okay.
because I'm nervous. So I usually use like the red lead because, like I said before,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sloppy. And I would just, you know, smear the pencil around everywhere.
How many times did you draw this cat before you got to the point where you felt like you could comfortably reproduce it with minimal effort?
Not too many times. I mean, it was never that complex of a drawing to begin with to master, you know?
Did it always look pretty much like this?
Well, the cats always look like this.
Mm-hmm.
This pose I usually just, it's just the go-to. So I don't have to draw the whole cat, you know, so it's easy. So that's the draw of the pencil.
And you're going to use one of your tapering
I like
brushes?
to use Winsor & Newton Black Indian ink because to me it gets the blackest black in my experience. But I always dangerously put it near my artwork on a slant, like over other things.
Is this carpet padding that you use to keep things from slipping?
Yeah.
What is this stuff?
It's cabinet liners.
Okay.
You can buy it at the Dollar Tree for really cheap.
That's great.
But sometimes I have to put, like, if I ever have, like, it's great.
Gives you
And I cut little pieces.
friction.
Yeah. I'm going to use the fat brush.
Okay.
And I like to get it wet first because it's all hard and
Do you have a consistent surface that, okay, so you have a napkin that
whatever's
you wipe it
nearby.
off on?
And I like to use sticky notes to practice.
Cool. So you do a little bit beforehand where you get the right line out of your brush.
Well, yeah, because, like, it takes a while for the ink to soak through, right?
Okay.
I'm sure you understand.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you get, like, the dry
Fraying at the end
ring.
of
You
the
got to,
line.
like, keep going until it's thoroughly through the brush. I feel very odd, like, running some sort of how-to video. My hand's shaking already.
I think it's good because, you know, I don't know what it was like for you as a young cartoonist, but there were tons of tools I didn't know about, or little things. I drew the first comic I did with nib the whole way through because I thought that's what we were supposed to do.
Nibs are the worst. I hate that scratch noise they make. All right. And so I just go for it.
Yeah. That's great. So do you end up, oh, okay. So you end up turning the page to get the best mark.
Yeah. Oh, my hand's so shaky.
Looks steady from here.
Oh, it's not done yet.
You might be creating Wiggle Cat as your new character.
Yeah.
That's cool. And so when you talked about line weight, is that something that you...
Well, yeah, I
you
wanted
try and
that
take
to
into
be
account?
super thick.
And why do you want that part
I
to
don't
be
know.
thick?
It felt right at the time.
Mm-hmm. Is it symbolic of the where light is falling for you? Do you
No,
ever
I
think of it
never
that way?
consider that,
Okay.
to be honest. Probably because I never color my work.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I don't consider lighting as much as I could.
Because you use a brush and you use ink from a bottle, do you think about the sequence of lines you're going to put down?
Well, sometimes. Like
Just so that
maybe
you
I
don't
shouldn't
know.
have done that line because the ink was already starting to.
Yeah.
But then I take the Bob Ross rule of happy accidents and I'll just leave it be anyway.
So you sort of let opportunities creep their way through if they present
Well,
themselves.
because usually I've learned if I try to fix it, I'll just make it worse.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably just best to leave it the way it is.
That's cool.
And I like to do the spin. Do you do the
I
spin
do
to get
I
the
do
point?
spin.
You gotta do the spin.
So when you do these kind of drawings at a convention, do you use your actual brushes?
Oh, heck no.
Or do you use pocket?
I use a pocket brush pen.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's faster, you don't have to rely on like continuously doing this. And
Do you use the same ink in your pocket brushes?
I use whatever it comes with,
Okay.
the ink cartridges,
Yeah.
you know.
And so this has been your process since you started drawing EMITOWN. This thing you're showing us now.
Well, I've done a few EMITOWNs like this,
Okay.
but most of it was done with a pocket brush pen.
Oh, really? With no sketching prior to?
Well, I do pencil sketching,
In a sketchbook?
yeah,
Okay.
for EMITOWN. In the beginning, I didn't,
Yeah.
but then when I realized that people might be seeing it, I changed my ways.
That's great.
And then I like to do that for the stripes.
Oh, that's cool.
And then I always like to
You go
do it in
back
sketchbooks. Because it's my thing, is the dry brush thing.
Yeah.
It's my thing. And then I saw my name. Which I learned is like the worst way to sign your name because it takes a while.
Oh, did
I see Jeff signs his name's like,
Nobody can read that.
I know.
Yeah, that's great because then people can find you later.
And
Yeah.
that's how it goes.
That's great. I love that you finish off with dry brush. That's really cool.
Because that's the fun part. And then I just rip it.
Oh no!
And I'm like, what's art anyway?
What's art anyway? Eat a steak.
Eat a steak, read a book.
Well, thanks, Emi. That was awesome. Thank you for showing us.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming to my corner.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Hi. Boom.
I wanted to miss it, but you actually hit my
I was
hand.
aiming.
Can you take me on a Final Fantasy adventure and show me what it's all about?
I will take you there.
What's the name of your village?
We're going to Gridania.
Let's go to Gridania. I'm ready. So you have a group of people that you like to play with or that you meet up with to go on, is it like you go on dungeon raids or what do they call them in Final
They
Fantasy?
do call them dungeon raids.
Do they?
Good job.
Boom.
What? It's like you've been playing forever. You see, I can do these cool moves.
Does it seem
Look at
crazy
that.
to you?
Watch.
Like, I'm sorry.
Look at that. It's cool, right? Look at that.
That is awesome.
Boom.
Well, do you waste magic power
Wow.
doing that or no? Oh my god.
No.
How do you earn money?
You sell things, you kill things, you raid.
Okay.
You know, usual money-making things.